All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining our training. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Wanted to thank you for joining today. We are going to start with introductions and give a brief overview of the agenda topics for the day. Want to thank you all for attending and participating in this process with us. Want to begin by introducing a new member of our team today. We have TJ Reed joining us. It's his first week here. I'll let him go ahead and turn on his webcam and say hello to everybody. And then go ahead and turn on.
Hey, everybody.
Introduce yourself, TJ.
I am TJ Reed. This is my third day with HMIS, and I'm excited to be here and on this webinar with you all.
All right, today's agenda topics are that we are going to be going over how we have received your feedback. Next, we're going to go over the sheltered point in time process. We're going to go over some changes about new online training options and one-day training. We're going to go over some things about how backdate mode is changing. We're going to explain some new naming conventions. And lastly, we are going to be going over a pro tip of the day, which is the art in box. So a few reminders. As in the previous months, it is the attendee's responsibility, that's you, to share what you've learned with your agencies. When you want to ask us questions during this training, please use the Q&A function. Common questions will be answered live. All of the Q&As will be aggregated and shared at a later date, and longer questions can be emailed to the help desk. If you require attendance, we do require attendance for this training, and the recording will be available by February 2nd, and you will have until February 9th to complete for any of those agencies who were not able to attend. Next, Ty is going to be talking about feedback.
So we really want to make sure that we are getting feedback on making sure that these webinars are useful and beneficial to those that are attending. Last month, we had a poll question that asked what you thought about our new user setup process. During that new user setup process, we kind of launched a poll and we said, what percentage of people liked the process and what percentage of the people did not like the process. And we asked if there was anyone that had reservations or suggestions. We found that there were about 11 people that had identified that they had reservations or suggestions. And after the meeting, we followed up with those people. So during the polls today, it will actually give us the name of the person and what your response was. And that allows us to be able to reach out to you to have a further conversation about the particular topic. So today we'll be going through a couple new processes, and when those polls come up, please feel free to let us know how you feel about the process and what you think about it, and give us an opportunity to be able to reach out to you and communicate with you further about that topic. The other item is that we do have a SurveyMonkey tool that goes out after the training. During that SurveyMonkey presentation, or during that SurveyMonkey tool, that is your opportunity to provide anonymous feedback. So the information is not collected on a per user basis. There's not an opportunity for us to be able to reach back out to you. But if you want to be able to leave kind of honest feedback about things that we can improve, changes that we can make, future agenda items, you can do so on the SurveyMonkey page. We're going to have a really transparent process for that SurveyMonkey. Basically, we're going to make this the results of this available at the end of each of our trainings. I'm going to go ahead and pull up last month's training survey and share that with you now. All right, sorry for the delay in pulling this up. I didn't have it open right away. Thanks for your patience. So on last month's training survey, we had approximately half of our users from Balance of State and the other half from Maricopa County. These are just people that responded to the survey. So we had more people in attendance, but you can see we had a pretty high satisfaction or pretty high attendance and response ratio. We have a satisfaction rating that just says, how we felt we did on this training. But then also, most importantly, we have a section where you can provide feedback. So this is something that we're being really transparent about and making sure that we can incorporate these suggestions into future topics. So we want to make sure everyone can see the feedback that we're receiving, be able to provide feedback anonymously, and for us to be able to make adjustments to our future webinars in accordance with that feedback. At this point, I'll pause and allow anyone to ask a question on our Q&A section, just about this process of how you can provide feedback during agency admin trainings and ways that we can further engage with you in this webinar process. We'll pause the webinar for about 30 seconds and wait for questions to come in through the Q&A section.
All right, everybody. So we didn't see any questions, but feel free as we continue to type any questions in there and we'll get to them as quickly as we can. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the 2018 sheltered point in time. So first of all, thank you all for those of you who volunteered, whether going on the streets and finding folks, or if you came over to our facility and did data entry. We appreciate all of that. It really helps in getting a better understanding of how many and who the population is. So a little bit of background on this. So the federal report is for point in time is used both federally and in our local area to better understand homelessness. And we use it in conjunction with the unsheltered count. So those who are in shelter on the night of the 22nd are counted, and those who are counted on the streets the next morning are included together. So what we're going to ask of you guys and what we're going to need is we report on 3 different things. So the total number of clients that were served in shelters, transitional housing, safe haven, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. And then we're going to report on the community capacity for all of those things. And then we're going to look at the demographics of those who are currently in the program. So what you should expect from us in the next little bit is regarding the total number served. We are going to email the number of clients that you served in your programs on the evening of January 22nd. So that's all shelters, transitional housing, rapid, and PSH. So we're going to be emailing you all. So please take a look at that number based on your reports and your figures and compare it. and let us know if that number is correct. And if it's not correct, you can send an email back with the correct number and what the differences are. And then the second piece is we're going to go over the capacity. So this is only going to be for emergency shelter and transitional housing. We're going to be emailing you and asking for the specific amount of units and beds that you had available on the night of the 22nd. So just so you don't get overwhelmed by this information, we will be emailing out on these specific items. So expect this in the next week or so, that we're going to get in contact with you to get information back from you.
So at this point, we'll pause for question and answers. So if you want to shoot in a question, please go ahead and do so. I'll also take this opportunity to launch a poll regarding the point-in-time collection. I'll just describe what the process was in the past. Previously, the HMIS team ran individual reports for every single agency in the entire continuums of care, both out in the state of Maricopa. So that involves basically HMIS staff time going in and completing the prompts and running the ART report for approximately 100+ programs, every single line within the housing inventory chart. What we're trying to do is streamline that process, where we're going to be emailing you kind of a total number confirmation and confirming a capacity number. So if you can go ahead and reply to this poll. If you need us to reach out to you, please go ahead and mark that, and we'll do so. And let us know if you like this process, don't like this process, and ask any questions and answers at this time. The first question that we have is from Kelly Tanner. She is asking that on this particular night, there were a number of people that were in their shelter that the shelter is funded by a program that is not federally funded. So the question is, how will that information be provided to us? So the HMIS staff works with each continuum of care to make sure that both federally funded and non-federally funded providers are able to provide information for the sheltered point in time. There's going to be a separate survey that goes out to those non-HMIS providers that have data that have shelter units. So that's going to be an entirely separate process. Since this webinar is really for our HMIS administrators, we don't really have that exact process lined out or lined up today. So we have a question about point-in-time data entry. So we have sent out an email blast to our Maricopa users stating that in Tempe this week, we're doing data entry for the unsheltered point in time. As you're all aware, the unsheltered point in time, people go out with paper surveys, and that data then has to get analyzed. Previously, HMIS staff was spending between 200 and 300 hours of data entry on that process, and we've asked to have volunteers attend and help us with that. The response was really exciting, and I am happy to say that we've been hosting the data collection over the past day, and we're continuing to do so. If you're interested in volunteering with us to do point-in-time data entry, please reach out. I'm just really excited about this process. It's going to allow us to get data out a whole lot sooner. So yes, if you are interested in doing point-in-time data entry, please go ahead and reach out to us.
We had a question from Terrence as well. So Terrence asked it, is this just a total of members in housing through ADOH and HUD, or is it the total number they have housed in the balance of state? So this is just looking at the current number of people in housing on the night of the 22nd, not the amount of people that have been housed in the past. And it is all people, not just ADOH and HUD funding.
We have a really great question asking about capacity for units or beds in transitional housing. That's such a great question about like how to determine a capacity number in a particular intervention. The truth is that it's a fairly complex process because it's one of the federal items that they want to make sure is consistent across the entire nation. So how you would count a unit or bed per intervention will change based off of the intervention type. For emergency shelter, it seems like it would be really easy. Well, it's just the number of beds that are put out. But you then have to ask questions of, well, are these beds available year round? Are they available just during the summer versus the winter? And it gets to be really complex. Same with rapid rehousing. You think it would be relatively simple, but there's weird requirements around are they actively receiving rent assistance, or have they received rent assistance in the past? This is my long-winded way of saying that in the email that we're going to send out asking for you to provide capacity numbers, we're going to be giving you that guidance to be able to help you answer that question. So it really does make a difference how capacity is counted, and we want to make sure that that's uniform, but it's something that is going to be really detailed for your particular program. And if there gets into any nuance, we're going to have to work with you really closely to make sure that the number that is presented represents not just your program, but also aligns with kind of the consistency standards throughout the United States for counting beds and units of that particular type. So at this point, for the sake of time, we do still have a couple of questions in our queue. We're going to reply to those individually and privately via individual messaging. At this point, we're going to go to our next topic, which are our updated training options.
Good morning. So this is Sam, and talk about training. So on the HMISAZ.org website, we have new training options, specifically the online options. So previously for online options, we provided introductory and case management training. We now also offer all the funder-specific trainings, SSVF, HOPWA, Outreach, RI, and PATH trainings online as well. The important thing to note about the training process is that if you are in a PATH program, you're not just going to go to the PATH training and do only the PATH training. What we want everyone to do is for everyone to complete the base introductory training, which will give you the foundation for everything else. At that point, depending on your program, for outreach programs, for example, you would complete the introductory training, then you would do the outreach addendum, because the outreach, SSVF, HOPWA, RI, and PATH trainings are addendum, and they cover specifically the workflows and the questions specific to those grants and those funding streams. So, for example, an SSVF project, to complete that training, what you would do is you would go ahead and complete the introductory training, the case management training as well in that case, and then finally you complete the SSVF training. Now, the trainings for SSVF, RI, and so forth, they won't cover the entire workflow from start to finish, those addendums are just to cover the specific aspects of your SSVF grant, your RIDE grant, and so forth. So it's more modular now, but you can now go ahead and get credit for training online completely for any program that we do provide in Balanced State or Maricopa. So that is for online training. As for the in-person trainings, beginning in March, we're going to be moving to one-day trainings for a full-day training. The same theory applies is that we want to go away from trainings that are very short, a couple of hours, a lot of detail about one specific program only. We want to make sure we have a more holistic understanding of the entire workflow from start to finish. To do that, we're going to have full-day training starting in March, and those trainings will cover every program. So we'll have people who may work outreach, SSVF, and HOPWA together, but the whole-day training, what allows us to do is to kind of modularize the training and allow us to make more custom, kind of customize the training throughout. Additionally, the length of training is intended to give users, especially new users, more practice and hands-on practice. So every time there'll be a session where we'll actually give them fake clients, and we'll be inputting client data, fake client data, and then we'll be walking the HMIS team members through any questions or concerns that the users may have. And the hope here is that we'll be able to have better trained users that when they go to your agency, that they're a lot more capable of picking up HMIS from the get-go, and there'll be less training required on your end to get them started in the process. So those are the big changes. Right now we have the online trainings are live, and then instead of being in March, we'll have a full-day training with the intent of training users better and making sure they're more comfortable with the software before actually getting to your agency. We also do, and we have had the past few months, but we'll just kind of reiterate this, is we do have agency trainings. If you want a specific training for your program, you have specific questions, you just want a refresher, you can always submit a ticket through the HMISAZ.org ticketing portal, and we can set up custom trainings for your agencies. That way, if you have 15 case managers or something of that sort that you want to discuss an issue regarding referee housing, an HMIS team member will set that up with you. We can travel to you, or you can come to our Tempe office, and we'll have a custom training with custom content to cover whatever that you may need or need clarification on. And so that would just be submitted through the ticketing portal on HMISAZ.org. So I guess we're going to pause for some questions. So we'll give a 30-second or minute pause, and please if you have any questions, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can.
All right, our next topic is to go over some changes about how we are going to be training about backdate mode. Going forward, we are not going to be training anymore that it is a required step. Instead, we're going to be training that it is a tool for convenience, but not a must for data entry. We've determined that using backdate mode is not an essential step in the workflow. It doesn't hurt, but it just isn't required. So going forward, it'll mostly be used by those who happen to be entering past data for several clients at once, such as data entry staff for outreach programs. And also, we want to let you know this change will be an item on future refresher trainings to help ensure that staff are aware. We'll pause a few more seconds for questions about this topic too before moving on.
While you add questions, I'll just add one piece here. One thing that you'll be seeing over the agency admin trainings are just updates to our workflow. We're really taking the process to make sure to hone in on the essential portions of trainings and only training on what is absolutely necessary and not trying to introduce anything that will confuse users. So we're going to be discussing these changes in these agency admin trainings so that everyone that is supervising and managing can be aware of these changes. And so if you have a new user come back from our trainings or watch a video online and they say, oh my goodness, they never trained me on how to use backdate mode. Why is that? We want to be able to provide this information to our agency administrators to be able to distribute if it's appropriate. Now, for this example, this is a really simple one. We've determined that backdate mode doesn't affect reporting. It doesn't really change the workflow, but it certainly can impact an agency. So it's still an option that agencies can use, and that's what we're describing here. So there may be a number of these that happen over time, and we're hoping that communicating these during the agency admin training will be helpful for agency admins to share. So Lori Morrison is asking how backdate mode differs from just entering a date in the past. What you'll find when entering data within Service Point is that almost all of the fields on every single page allows you to enter a date. So for example, on the entry and exit tab, you can choose a date for the date that they entered the program. And you can choose any date. You can choose any date in the past, a present date, and it doesn't really matter what backdate mode says. Same with services. You can go in and out of service and you can say it's a date in the past or it's a date in the present. One thing that backdate mode does is it creates consistency all the way across. What's nice about that is, let's say you are having to enter data from 4 or 5 days ago, and you're having to do kind of mass data entry. It allows you to go in and say, okay, the information from 4 days ago applies on the entry exit screen, and 4 days ago it was on the services screen. You can do it either way. You can just go in and change the date, and you can change it manually, or you can do backdate mode, and it will sort of auto choose that date for you. So it's really not necessary because users can go in and manually change every single date across the way. It isn't necessary to use backdate mode to kind of force that change to happen. So that's probably a little bit more detail than the group needed today. In the end, because users can just change the date that they see on the screen on the particular tab that they're on, it's not necessary to have that additional step of always going into backdate mode if it's in the past. We have an anonymous attendee asking a question. I'm not sure how you were able to get into this webinar, Miss Anonymous Attendee, but I definitely will answer your question. Backdate mode, is it necessary whether entering data in the past 7 days? So there's data entry requirements. There's timeliness standards that say you have to enter data within a certain number of days for that to be accurate. It's actually impossible to fool the system time. So you can go ahead and say in backdate mode that you're entering it a couple days ago, but in system time, it will still show that you're entering it today. So there's not a way to fool the system into getting better timeliness standards. So this idea of showing whether data was entered within a certain time period, that has absolutely no applicability to backdate mode at all.
on the screen.
So the next question that we have is, or the next topic is around naming conventions. So I don't know about you, but as a user of the system and as the system administrator of the system, finding a provider in HMIS and really knowing what that program is can be really, really difficult. So what we're going to be doing is providing a process by which we're going to go through every program and every provider and applying a standardized naming convention to each of the programs. So right now, it's sort of hit or miss what you would find in the system. Sometimes there's a full agency name. Sometimes there is a abbreviation. Sometimes the program type is in there. Sometimes the funding stream is in there. Sometimes it's not, and it's really confusing. So what our proposal is that in the naming convention, we want to have 4 components in every single provider's name. We want to have an agency acronym, a common language description of the program, a funding stream if it's appropriate, and the HUD program type if it's appropriate. So the example of this on the left, you see that there's just a couple different ways. Sometimes you have an abbreviation, sometimes you have a full name of a program, sometimes you have the name of a program, but it doesn't tell you exactly what it is. It's just listed as a center or as a property or as a project, and it's not really clear what it is. So we want to be able to apply what that description is. We're going to have to work with every agency to make sure that this applies appropriately to your agency so that it's not causing confusion for your users. And we're not going to be making changes without you being able to provide feedback on that. And honestly, we're really expecting agencies to give us feedback on what the common language name for their program would be, what people would understand it as. Since entry exits are shared very frequently, both in Maricopa County and Balance of State, we really want to have a convention that any user can sort of see and pick up what exactly that information is and what type of program a client is enrolled in. One of the examples here, the second one, the East Valley Men's Center at a new lease, the funding streams for emergency shelters can really vary. There can be a lot of different funding streams, a lot of different federal, state, local, private, lots of different funding can go into an individual program. For that scenario, we're just going to leave it completely off. So the funding stream for this is left off blank. For other programs, the funding stream will be filled in, but the idea is we want to make sure to have this information readily available at the initial viewing of the program or of the project in HMIS. So at this point, we'll pause for questions. Go ahead and type in questions and we'll launch another poll. Okay, so sharing the results from the poll, I want to say thank you to Alicia for paying attention. I did have an error on the slide, so I went ahead and made an annotation and updated that. So yes, we are going to be marking for each program after acronym and the common language name, marking what is the funding stream or the program type. One thing I do want to say, we do need to hear from you about the agency acronym. So there's some that are really common, so these all make a lot of sense to me, but there's other ones that have longer names that it may not be appropriate. So, you know, I'm thinking of Crossroads out in Yuma. You know, I'm not sure if, you know, the appropriate acronym is going to be like CROSS, right? That would be sort of weird. You know, so maybe there's something that is more appropriate. So in the next few days here, we're going to be posting the acronyms that we're going to propose. And if you have any suggestions or questions about those, you can reach out to us. This is something that is not static. We can change it. So if we need to change it over time, we could. The idea is we just want it to be consistent all the way across. So every single one of your programs would have the same abbreviation or the same agency acronym. All right, last topic for today. We're just going to do a quick tip around the advanced reporting tool. So right now I'm logged into the system as myself. The piece that we just wanted to cover was functionality called the ART inbox. So every user that is a supervisor, manager, agency admin, we want to make sure that you're set up with the ability to run and view reports. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see my screen just a little bit better. There we go. That should be a little bit better. So the functionality that I just want to mention is the ART inbox. If you come to the top right-hand corner and go to ART, users that have accessibility to ART will have this folder at the top of the ART browser called the inbox. Within the inbox, you will be able to see reports that you have scheduled or that someone else has scheduled for you. So in my list, you can see, you know, the reports that I've run in the past couple of days that I've saved. And these reports, I would just be able to click on the magnifying glass and open them. So I would just click the download button and it would come right to my screen. The piece that is noteworthy is that you can send a report, you can schedule a report for other users. So the reason that we wanted to bring this up today is that when the HMIS team runs a report for you, if you request us to run it, or if you we need to contact you about a data quality issue, rather than sending that report via email, we're really going to try to send it through the ART inbox. We're going to try to send it to your user within ServicePoint itself. So the main way that you'll view that is simply doing connect to ART, going to the ART inbox and hitting the magnifying glass icon. Super easy trick, but you know, we've said to users, hey, we sent you a report to your ART inbox, and then we'll reply back and they'll say, well, I never received the email. So it's sort of not ideal that it's named inbox within ServicePoint. It would be nice if it was named something else, but that's what we have to work with. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of this functionality. So this is a super quick tip. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A and we'll move to our last topic of the day.
All right, everybody. So thank you so much for joining. For the rest of the questions in the Q&A and any other questions, we will respond back to them. So if you haven't gotten a chance to ask any questions, feel free to either put in a ticket at hmisaz.org or email the questions to us after this. If you're hanging on the line, you can also just type it in the QA and we'll get back to you. But before you log off, we really do want your feedback. So in the next 30 minutes, you can expect an email with a link to the SurveyMonkey, similar to the one last week or last month, with 4 questions. So if you could provide your honest feedback, we really do appreciate it, and we want to keep improving and making the best changes possible. So thank you again, everybody, for participating, and we will see you next time.